Oof, loading up. Everyone's coming on.
Well, we have breaking news, Adrian. Everyone should be on. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
And like we always say, we love to see smiling faces. I know that everybody, oh, it's Monday. I didn't do my hair, didn't get my nails did. Doesn't matter. We love to see y'all.
It's Monday. You better have your hair did. It's not Sunday. You could use that excuse on Sunday.
Lovely.
Awesome. All right, let's jump right in. Adrian, how was your weekend, sir?
Good. We got to celebrate 21 years this past weekend of being together with my ball and chain. On a
Wait a
more
second
serious note,
here.
it's so
I
it's
was
such a
waiting for
good
you to
thing
say
she's
your
not
other
able.
half, and I was going to say better.
Here's what's awesome. I just wanted to throw this out there. I wanted to thank our teams, both the Pines office and both the Weston office. Two things. One, thank you so much, guys, for the beautiful makeup Father's Day celebration. And Weston, my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much for just making an absolutely enjoyable 21st for my significant other and I. You guys made us feel absolutely loved, and we're grateful for that. That's it. Just wanted to say that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, happy 21 years together. Awesome. All right, let's see. Well, friends, if you have a friend that you do not see here today, text them real quick. We have some updating breaking news that just came out of Florida Realtors late on Friday. So we wanted to just get right in front of you and share this with you. All right, let's start here. Oh, sometimes my thing doesn't want to start. All right, Adrian, talk to us about this TCPA Act.
So here we go. I know that most of you have heard the standard explanation. I just wanted to take a moment and approach this from a slightly different perspective, right? So here it is, the concept of digital citizenship. And you're like, oh God, here we go, Adrian. Basically, this refers to the responsible and ethical use of technology by you guys. At its core, you guys know that the TCPA is all about respecting personal boundaries, just like some of you want to respect your own personal space. We get that. And being a good digital citizen just means this, that you should respect the privacy and the consent of others in the online transactions or including in your text messages. And all the TCPA mandates is that businesses such as the ones you guys run all need to obtain prior consent prior to making telemarketing calls and or sending text messages. That's it. And lastly, guys, I want to always leave you with this little message. If you ever think your actions are walking the line or skirting this, they likely are. So call us first.
Yes, don't do anything before calling one of us first. Awesome. All right, let's start. We've got some new forms and we've got some timelines finally released from Florida Realtors and the National Association. So let's kind of start where we're at. What is available as of Friday? Well, we have 4 documents that we're going to go over. We're going to go over them in details that were available to us as of Friday. They are now, as of today, available in Form Simplicity, should you use that service. And they are also available in both Dotloop and DocuSign as of today. So those 4 documents are and they're both, 2 of them are compensation agreements. One of them is a compensation agreement between the seller's broker and the buyer's broker. The other compensation agreement would be between the seller and the buyer's broker. And then there's 2 modifications to those agreements. And we'll kind of go over that. And so you can see the different scenarios in which one you might want to use one of those. All right, fast forward. Next documents that become available to us, they will be available to us on July 9th. And what will be released on July 9th, and now it's in writing, so now it has to be true, is that we are going to get the amended buyer broker agreement. I know Adrian's laughing because these are documents we were promised on June 1st, but we all know this is a moving target. This has not been easy to get everybody on the same page and of course to get the language just right. So July 9th, the amended buyer brokerage agreement that we've been waiting for, an amended showing agreement, an amended retainer agreement, and a modification to that buyer broker agreement. All of that will be coming out on July 9th. So what happens is today we will go over the documents that just released on Friday. When the documents come out on July 9th, the really great thing is on July 17th and 18th, we will be doing our annual risk aversion with all of you all. Now, you might as well put that in your calendars already now. Block the day. We'll be able to give you the times at the end of this week. They will be run twice in Broward and twice in Dade. And it won't matter which one you come to, but you're going to have to register because no matter what, the space will be limited in all of the venues, but we'll have at least 4 chances for you to come attend this. We're going to be going deep into the new documents that they released.
I don't know,
Then,
Natasha, but I'm taking bets that this July 23rd will be the largest turnout we've ever had for this event. Just saying.
well,
Any,
Adrian, I hope they're not showing up on July 23rd because that'll be too late. It's the 17th and 18th.
got it. My apologies. You're
Yeah.
right.
The 17th and 18th of July, because we wanted to make sure that you had at least a month before. Now, the really cool thing is it doesn't come out till the 9th, but that you'll have at least a month before all of the enforcement rules go into effect on the buyer brokerage. But we know you guys, this is old hat. You've been doing this for 6 or 7 months already. This should be very comfortable for you. And I know for some of you that are newer to us, maybe you weren't. But on July 23rd, what comes out is the amended listing agreements and any additional forms that they're going to be putting out. And rather than moving our date back, because we want to be sure you have plenty of time, what we will then do is schedule a separate Zoom, whether it's on a Monday or a different day of the week. We will schedule a separate Zoom and go through the market centers to train on the amended listing agreement. But most importantly, we want to get that buyer agreement in front of you. And then fast forward to October, and there will be some condo rider changes coming. And, you know, there's some new changes to HOA and condos that just came out that become state law soon. And well, because this was priority, we're going over this today and we'll be covering some of that in the next coming weeks. So this is the most important thing to talk about right now. All right, here we go. Adrian, are you ready, sir?
I'm ready. So I wanted to get one quick thing out of the way that I believe will clear the air for many of our agents, right? Agents have asked us from time to time, can't I just add the compensation structure to the purchase contract? And so the short and sweet answer is, remember, neither brokerages are direct parties to the purchase contract, which is between the buyer and the seller. So including compensation within that contract could create a legal and practical complication. That's the purpose, or that's the primary reason of these agreements, or why we've been waiting for this instrument to come out. Hope that makes sense. So here we go. Compensation agreement number 1, which is from the seller directly to the buyer's broker, where so I guess here's what we want to do. Let's just kind of go back and forth, Natasha. So when would an agent, if I'm the buyer's agent or if I'm the listing agent, when would this instrument be utilized? And then we'll go through it quickly.
This would be utilized right now, your listing agreement, when you take a listing as a listing agent and your seller is offering compensation to a buyer's broker. This is where you would now utilize this form because the seller is offering the compensation to the buyer's broker, right?
Perfect.
And so in the event that the seller's offering, this is the form you would use. Go ahead, Adrian.
So what I was saying is, and I like simplicity so that our agents get this fast. If let me use America for a second. America, you don't have to come off mute. I just want to direct the language, right? So America, your listing agreement, you spoke to the seller, and the seller said, America, I'm in agreement. You're charging me X, whatever that value is, and within the context of that value of X that you're charging the seller is in agreement to cooperate with a cooperating agent. Make sense so far? Exactly the way that you guys, or most of you, are currently familiar with how your listing agreements work. Nat, did I get that right?
That would be correct.
Perfect. And so now, because of that, in America, it's very likely that throughout the last couple of weeks, as you've listed the property, you may have received phone calls or text messages or whatever, where it states, hey, is your seller offering compensation? You stated yes. And now the offer comes in. This is where the buyer's agent, correct, Natasha? The buyer's agent would present this additional instrument along with their purchase agreement or the purchase contract, expressing specifically, hey, seller to compensate, in this case, buyer's broker, Keller Williams Realty Partners Southwest. I'm just going to use the name. Seller being, call her Karaoke for a moment. And property address at 123 Wish It Was Mine. Property listed by America Ramirez, seller's broker. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Buyer's
So,
broker. Go ahead. I keep going.
yeah, Adrian. So this particular document can be utilized even prior to showing or prior to contract. Because this is an agreement where the seller is offering compensation. Remember, in the past, well, really, it's still effective up until August 17th, but let's just assume we're on August 18th now, which is only, I don't know, 6 weeks away. The offer of compensation, well, just about, right? I don't know. I can't see the calendar because all I'm
It's
seeing is
close.
y'all beautiful faces, right? We're close. So what'll happen is on that date, the offer of compensation comes out of the MLS. We still have the offer of cooperation, right? So we're letting everybody know, hey, we've got this property for sale and you're more than welcome to show it. And as buyer's agents at that point, you will be working under a buyer agency agreement because that is the law. And so we're assuming everybody at that point has a buyer's agency agreement signed. But that buyer may be tight on cash and maybe they've instructed their agent to request the compensation from the seller. And or we've got a seller who was listed from now and is still for sale at that point, but the offer of compensation is no longer available showing in the MLS. This is the enforcement tool that if a seller is offering cooperating compensation from the seller directly to the buyer's agent. We're going to ask you guys also to hold all questions till the end. We know there's going
Put
to
them in
be
the chat.
a
Put
bunch
them
of
in the chat,
questions.
guys.
Throw them
Yep.
in the chat. It's going to be the easiest way for us to handle them. We know that if a seller is offering compensation to the buyer's agent, the MLS will no longer be our enforcement tool. This will be the tool that will allow us to enforce that compensation. So if we have the buyer and their seller's offering, this tool now clearly indicates the property address, who the agents are that are involved in the transaction, how long the term is. So by the way, it's a 30-day term unless it's under contract and then it goes through the extension of the closing of the property. It outlines the compensation and it's very clear. It could be a flat fee, it could be a percentage of the purchase price, or it could be anything else that gets made up from there. Then any additional terms that the seller is agreeing and willing to compensate the buyer's broker for. It clearly gives us a dispute resolution that includes arbitration. Now, that doesn't preclude us from going to mediation, but it includes a term for arbitration. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, and we were looking for a couple of things in these agreements, right? In that that it has a little bit more stickiness and that it actually ties stickiness in terms of if there was a dispute. I like that we added that. I love that it has the necessary language to comply with the NAR settlement, so it gets that out of the way. I like that that there's several fields for flexibility of compensation so that no one party, seller specifically, ever feels like, hey, someone told me this and that's the only way that it can be, and that it expresses as part of the NAR settlement that all compensation is negotiable and can be agreed upon. So I love that it added all of that stuff. And the last thing that I'll offer, I think just in simplicity in that is that it memorializes, I think is the phrase that I need all of us to get through. This particular instrument memorializes the compensation conversation or the compensation agreement so that, just like you stated, I've make a phone call, the listing agent's agreeing and said the seller will compensate. How do you get that in writing? This is your in writing document. I think that makes sense.
Correct. This is your in writing document because the listing agreements until now provided for us to charge X, and as listing brokerages, we were offering Y. The likelihood is you're going to see that change as these new listing agreements are actually unfolding and coming out. Hence, we're getting these compensation agreements that show up. Adrian, I want to cover a couple of the questions that are coming up in the chat, and I'm going to give you them. They're not going in any particular order, just in the order that I can open them up.
Okay,
So
let's go.
first question is, can the compensation agreement be an attachment in the MLS listing?
I'm so glad someone said that. Here it is. I'll direct your attention to the very bottom of both of these pages, or actually all of the compensation agreement. And some of you are going to say, oh my gosh, Adrian, you can't see that. Here's what it says. It says very quickly, The parties acknowledge this form should not be used to share offers of compensation to buyers, brokers, or other buyer representatives in any field in the MLS listing service. If you heard what I heard, you heard that you are not going to upload this document to the attachment sections of the MLS as a way to advertise if someone's offering compensation. Did we get that right? Let me see some head
Correct,
nods.
Adrian.
Yeah, we got some head nods. All right, good. This is easy.
Yep,
Next.
that's correct. All right, next one. Should we use this now with our sellers?
I like that question. Again, I'm torn right now in terms of we have a listing agreement where the seller has already agreed to a specific cooperating compensation. It's advertised in the MLS. My answer is, as long as that field is up in the MLS, until it goes away, do we really need to utilize this additional instrument?
I would if we're going past July. So the moment we're getting, we have a listing, it's active, it's not under contract, or it's under contract and hasn't closed, and we're at the end of July, rather than you all scrambling in the first 2 weeks of August panicking, because we know how busy you are, it's school starts again here, right? So we know how busy we all get. Let's not scramble. Let's ensure that anything that you have that is not fully closed by the end of July now has the proper agreement attached to it.
Perfect. All right, got it. And from the compliance side of the world, guess what, guys? We're gonna look at them, and again, we'll hold the contracts to them. So pretty easy, not complicated. Next.
Okay. Next question is one that we don't have full clarification on. It works right now. So let me give you the next question. Can we use the showing agreement prior to having a buyer brokerage agreement signed in certain situations?
I believe that sounds like a coach related question. I would say yes, because the showing agreement, for all intents and purposes, is an agreement that discloses how you will be compensated in the event. And the showing agreement, for those of you who are like, what the heck is a showing agreement? It's a slightly more condensed version of your buyer broker's agreement, which specifically just outlines, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer or prospective buyer, if I show you any one of these 2, 3, 4 homes that are listed on this sheet, and you decide to move forward with an offer, then you agree that I will represent you in that offer. And then we discuss compensation, and it's a slightly condensed version. Yes.
And there will be new updated showing agreements also coming out. So the current showing agreements don't necessarily have the new language in there for compensation. So
I'm smiling because, and there's going to be more changes. Yes.
guys, just be comfortable with everything's changing. That's all. Just be comfortable with it. All right, here we go. Next question. At what stage of the sale should we use this document, meaning the seller to buyer's broker agreement?
I don't like pointing people out, but who asked that? That is an incredible question. That's probably one of the best questions that's been asked today, because it's so important to know this, right?
Arnaud asked that question.
Arnaud, you're awesome, man. Thank you for asking. Thank you for speaking up. I guarantee you're not the only one thinking that. So Arnaud, we were actually discussing this, is that, do you present this, and Natasha kind of alluded to it, you can present this form prior to the submission of offer if, let's say, going back to America, the listing agent had already dictated or disclosed to you that the seller is offering compensation. Are we good? And it needs to be presented along with the submission of offer. So if you've got this or not, if you're presenting an offer, purchase contract, this form goes along with it. Either it can be done prior if you had prior knowledge, or it needs to be submitted along with. And now what's the one piece that's missing from this, which is there has to be, what's that fun word? That it has to be contingent upon accepting of this offer?
Yeah, so this compensation agreement, right? Because I'm sorry, I'm reading the next question in there. So the next question ties to Arnaud's question. So I want to read this one from Jalissa. This compensation agreement will be in addition to the listing agreement. However, it will be the agreement we share with the buyer's agent in reference to compensation, correct? Well, it depends on which side of the transaction you are. So if you are the seller's agent, if you are the listing agent of a property, and the seller is offering compensation to a buyer's broker, that is correct. This is signed between the seller and the buyer's broker. As the listing broker or the listing agent, it's not our signature. We have a listing agreement that is enforceable for our portion of the compensation. But this is if the seller is offering compensation to the buyer's agent. That's when this would be signed.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. On to the next one, because we didn't create enough confusion in the first one.
No, I see it. So you know what's funny? Before we go on, I can't help but see it. We've gotten really good at reading Zoom rooms. We've got ponderous faces. We've got, oh my gosh, it's not perfectly clear. And Nat, I think we can be transparent. I don't know that we can be in the span of 20, 30 minutes, but here's the good news. Breathe. It's okay. You've got to digest this first portion, just like real estate contracts 101. Digest this for what it is. It's short, it's fast, and you'll get some of it. We're gonna create the videos. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, remember, team, just breathe through it. This is the first time you're seeing it. So you're going to have to read it probably more than once. If you're like me, you're gonna read it more than once. You're gonna fill in a fake one so that it's making sense to you. And then you're like, oh, this is so easy. This makes so much sense. But
Perfect.
the first time you're seeing it, it's because we've not used to working with it. So just relax. It's all good. And we got enough time. And we're going to teach and train on it. We just want to make sure you knew about it right now.
Good.
All right, let's go to the next one. So that's the first one is from the seller to the buyer's agent. Now, here we go. This is now from the seller's broker to the buyer's broker. So this is a broker to broker agreement. Adrian,
So,
explain the difference.
so am I getting this right that the seller's broker to buyer's broker is where, let's say I'm the listing agent and I am guaranteeing the buyer's broker commission because I'm being compensated. Let's just call it what it is. I'm being compensated X and I have an agreement to cooperate with a cooperating broker. I have that authority and distinction with my seller. And without having to involve them any further, this is my signature stating that I, as the broker, am agreeing to compensate that amount.
This is, yes, and if I am the listing agent and I have negotiated whatever that dollar amount is, I have chosen, the seller is not agreeing necessarily to compensate the buyer's broker. I have chosen as the listing agent to agree to pay the buyer's broker.
I appreciate that last little distinction because one of the conversations that we've had agents ask a lot over since the settlement agreement is, well, what if I have to make a business decision to make the deal? And this is where I've said for weeks and since the agreement was, I'm confident that there has to be an instrument that allows me to make, in my autonomy in business, allows me to be able to make that business decision if I need to. And if you're in agreement to do so, this is the compensation form you would utilize. I hope that made sense.
Correct. So what's going to be really important is to know the difference, right? To know the difference in the documents. The likelihood is more often, I apologize, I am choking on a peanut that I was eating for lunch. Yeah, no good deed goes undone. Here I sit there eating peanuts and there I go. Time out, people. Hold on one second.
Remember, stay hydrated, folks. It's hot out there.
That is not why. Stay hydrated or don't choke when you're on a Zoom. That's more like it. That's what happens when you don't get to eat lunch and you eat peanuts for lunch. All right. So what's really important is to know the difference between these two agreements. More often than not, you are going to use the first one where the seller has agreed for the compensation. But every once in a while, you may wind up in this one. You're as the brokerage, if you're the listing agent, the broker is agreeing to pay the commission. Just be really, I would say, be careful on which one you are choosing, because if you are signing this one, you have now obligated yourself or the brokerage for the compensation. And if that wasn't the intent, that could be a big pickle or an issue at the closing. It is not
I
my
like that you
favorite that they look so similar.
Yeah, I like that you stated that, Nat, in that, remember, whatever goes on this, you're committing. You are absolutely committing the brokerage. That's you guys. Whatever you stated you would pay, you're committing that amount to. So I guess here's a slightly different take on this for a second, if we haven't created enough confusion. Is there a possibility where both of these forms may be utilized on one purchase agreement?
So if there is a possibility, you might have negotiated additional apples and you're willing to give away some apples to secure a transaction. And perhaps it's not the buyer who needs those apples, but the buyer's agent that needs those apples. And so you're willing to do that, as well as the seller may be offering something, but it may not be enough to make that deal consummate.
Perfect.
And so there is a chance. It's very rare, but it is possible. Remember, there's no hard and fast rule here.
Mm-hmm.
Never has been. We've just created more confusion.
Understood.
Okay, good. All right. So let me see if there are any questions in the chat. Maliki is saying, okay. On number, wait, let's see here.
Yeah, the broker's commissions are not fully set by law and are fully negotiable.
Absolutely, which has
Well,
always been the case, and it's just clarifying it even further.
Well, here's what I like that she's pointing out. In no event will the buyer's brokerage compensation exceed the amount of compensation in the buyer's brokerage separate agreement. So Maliki,
That
you're
is
absolutely right. And
correct.
yep, we all agreed we're going to write in our compensation model for in our buyer brokerage agreement. I'm entitled, or not entitled, but I've agreed to X. And in no way, shape, or form, regardless of what's agreed to after the fact, can they receive more than that unless otherwise modified. But yeah, I love that you pointed that out. Good point.
Correct, and there is a modification form that will be available when the buyer's brokerage, the updated buyer's brokerage agreement comes out in July. There will be an updated buyer's brokerage agreement. There will also be a modification to that, because in the event that compensation is higher or lower, and you've agreed as an agent that that's what you're going to agree to work for, that then can be signed. Does that make sense? Especially when we're dealing with new construction. There's lots of scenarios in which it might be used.
I'm seeing some head nods. Okay, that's good. We're getting
Okay.
this.
Okay, good. All right, let's see.
On to modifications.
Okay. Well, before I go there, I'm still checking questions. So there's another question, Adrian. So the next question is, what happens if the sale does not go through with brokerage A and goes with brokerage B? Does this document invalidate with A? Okay, so this compensation agreement, if we're talking about the second agreement that we're on, it's really utilized for procuring cause. So if the first brokerage transaction doesn't consummate and the deal never goes anywhere, first of all, this contracts only allow for 30 days unless it's pending, in which point it extends through your closing. These are 30-day agreements. That's another important thing to pay attention to, because I wanted to mention that. However, if in the negotiations the deal falls apart, it never goes anywhere, doesn't consummate, and another brokerage comes with a different buyer, then that is the closing that takes place. It just didn't take place, if that makes sense.
Yep, I would agree that most understand that. In that, and again, this extended through the closing date. So I just wanted to wrap up one little point. America, real fast, just one more time. You're on the top of the screen. If your closing, and let's just call it what it is, if your closing was in theory till the 27th, your agreement, this agreement, if it expired before then, actually extends, it's directed in the language of this agreement, extends through the original closing date, I'm sorry, or the closing date on your purchase contract. So it's kind of neat in that they don't force all parties to keep going back and getting initials and everything else. I like that they wrote that in there. Hope that made sense.
The other thing that's really important, Adrian, to point out is, especially in our high-end properties, what happens in the high-end often is a buyer takes a look at a property, and whether we use version 1 or 2, doesn't matter if it's seller's broker or seller directly to buyer's broker. Both of them have a term of 30 days in there. So if we're showing a buyer and we've secured a compensation, the buyer has asked us to secure compensation from the seller. The seller's agreed to compensation. These agreements are for 30 days. If that buyer says, you know what, I'm not going to purchase right now, or I'm going to think about it, or I'll come back in 60 days, you will need a revised, updated contract commitment of compensation signed because it is a 30-day contract.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next as we try to wrap ourselves up here. All right, modification.
Simply put, it allows for a number of things, right? It allows for the term to be extended by any additional days of the actual compensation agreement if you need more time to wrap the deal up, or you know that you're extending your contract anyways, then you're extending this agreement as well. Or that the compensation to the buyer's broker will be modified, whether it's in a flat dollar amount or whether it's in percentage. Then if there's any modification of that within and after there is a change or an agreement to change, then you modify it through this. I think it's funny because I think one of the questions in the chat, the previous one, was exactly what we just discussed.
Correct. So the question pertaining to what would we utilize for any changes to compensation? And this is the modification agreement that you would use.
Yeah.
So if it's a
you know me, it's all about prepping, right? And so I hear that the language sounded, or the question sounded like this, in that, what if the seller changes their mind? I think it's prudent to say, guys, we've got our choice of language, our delivery, in that these are fully enforceable agreements, Mr. and Mrs. Seller or buyer, right? But regardless of who we have, that we're not willy-nilly just changing our mind. That's not the opportunity here. But if there is an agreement where by doing this, we'll have to reduce this, or by doing this, we can increase this. I'm going to play very, very blanket on this. Then utilize this. I'm concerned that we can't be the agents that are saying, feel free to change your mind whenever you want. And I'm hopeful no one on this call is using that kind of language with any party they represent. Hope that made sense.
Absolutely not. And the other question in the group chat, is this being recorded? Yes, we do record these Monday calls. They are available to you. We will place them in the Market Center's WhatsApp chats. And so you can refer back to it another time. All right. Next document is almost identical to document number number 3, which is another modification. And this is just the same modification, but it's modification of the seller's broker to buyer's broker agreement. It's everything Adrian just shared with you.
It is 33. I didn't know. I don't know that we could have possibly planned that any better. Guys, that's 30 minutes of real condensed, real in your face, very quick, and plenty more to come. What's next?
All right. So we have on the screen, if you'd like to, you can watch this recording again, where we break it down form by form for you. Also, Joanna Watkins, and she is the VP of Law and Policy, but she's also General Counsel for Florida Realtors. She put out a video on Friday that goes through everything. You can scan that QR code. That will take you straight to Florida Realtors, to the website where you can watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's a little over 12 minutes long. If you like to listen to things slowly, Joanna speaks very slow and concisely in the video. Adrian knows I speed up all my videos. I listen to it at 1.5 speed. If you listen quick, speed it up from the very beginning, or it'll make you crazy.
You know what I just learned? That you can actually speed up the videos that you're watching. Get out of here.
What? I love everything on fast speed. How do you think I get through everything so quickly? It's at least a 1.5. 1 3/4. I couldn't get it at 2. It was too fast at 2. So
Love
just
it.
FYI. So do that and get that, and you'll get to that video. So, and of course, as always, thanks to our business partners at both Top Flight and Universal Title. Greg does a Ask the Attorney call on Mondays. So I'm pretty sure that if you want to dive deeper and you want more information, Greg will now have had all of these documents today as well. I'm pretty sure next week he will be going over those. And next week is the week of 4th of July. We will have a call. I will be on vacation, but Adrian will be covering next week's call. So we'll be going deep on whatever changes happen between now and next week.
Beautiful.
All right. I love that. Yes, Manuel, everything you watch is on 2 speed. Yes. Just like 2019. Can't get through it otherwise. I don't know how you all have so much time. I just do not. All right, team. So
guys,
that's all we have for tonight. Great questions you all had.
2:35. We love you.
Thanks for staying on the extra 5 minutes.
There we go. We love you guys. Be
Bye,
good, be
guys.
safe.
Go
Be safe.
sell
Thank you,
something.
Natasha. Thank you.
Love y'all. Have a great
Adrian.
week.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.